Everyone talks about the sharing economy, Airbnb, and all types of services where you can take something that you own, you don't use all the time, and share it with strangers. One of those new companies, or not so new, but new here in Montreal at least, is Turo. It's a service that really is about sharing your car with others. Andre Haddad is the CEO of Turo. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to go back to how you started this company. Started this company up around 5 years ago?
Right.
Why, how, why did this company come about?
So we started the company back in 2011 because we realized that we had all these cars out there and they were so underutilized. In the United States there are 300 million cars, almost one car per American. In Canada, almost 30 million. Around the world we have 1 billion cars. And we all know that these cars are not always utilized, yet they cost people money even if they're not being utilized every day, and they depreciate in value. So it's a terrible asset to own in many ways. The returns are really negative on cars. In fact, if you buy a new car, you just get out of the dealership and it's already lost 15, 20% of its value.
So for you, this is a way for someone who owns a car to make some money back on that car, not lose, and to basically utilize an underutilized resource.
Absolutely, absolutely. We love consumers to be smart about their finances, and it's just, we've just grown up with this idea that a car is always going to cost us money, and we're trying to make it actually make you money.
And when you have to explain the service to someone, do you say basically it's Airbnb for cars? How do you describe it to someone? Maybe for someone at home who's not so familiar with the sharing economy.
So sometimes we use that analogy if people are more familiar with Airbnb, which happens to be the case in many places. We just try to tell people that this is a platform like eBay or Airbnb or other platforms where we're connecting people around car rental.
And we see it on our screen right now. This is your site. These are cars available right now in Montreal.
Right.
And one thing that strikes me, you guys just launched in Canada, and Montreal, one of the first markets that you're launching in this country, is just the types of vehicles. It's very varied. You can get an Econobox, you can get a Tesla, a Roadster sports car. So, have you been surprised by how quickly, when I looked at this, when you guys launched, you had so many cars available, I was shocked at how many people are really hankering to share their cars to others.
Well, we've been operating in the United States for the last 5 years, and we've been changing and improving the product over the last few years. And one of the things that has always struck me is how much diversity we have in the owner community that's joined Turo in the US and now in Canada. So we like to say that we have now cars, everything from an A3 as a homage to Audi's A3 to a Z4 and all the letters of the alphabet.
A3 to Z4, good way of putting it.
So you can find cars at $25 a day up to $500 a day.
Yeah, but I got to ask you, because for someone like me, when I heard about this service coming out and I looked into it, I said, you know what, if I owned my own car, I don't know if I'd want just anybody driving it, especially if you own it. Sometimes, I don't really baby rental cars when I rent from a big rental car company. This is cars that you sort of, but what have you seen? When people are renting out to strangers, do the strangers actually treat your cars, a Turo car, with more respect than they would from a car rental agency?
So we've created an experience where the host and the traveler meet on the marketplace, first online. They exchange messages when they're booking the car, when they're arranging for transportation, and then they meet in person to exchange the key just before the start of the trip. And we found that that's part of the secret sauce of creating that trust between strangers who. So
if you meet that person, you know them. If
you ever come and visit us in San Francisco and you rent my 911, you're going to meet me. I've been renting out that car for the last 4 years. So you meet me, I give you my keys. It's not some corporate car. It's Andre's car, and you're going to treat it well.
I have one more question for you, and that goes with what happens in that sort of worst case scenario. You rent a car from Turo, and unfortunately you get into an accident. That's a question I've heard a lot from people.
Right.
Like, what are the mechanisms? How does that work?
So we do a few things to make sure that happens very frequently, I would say, and that when it does happen, we have insurance to cover it. So we screen our travelers first. We collect some of their personal information. We collect their auto insurance score, and we've placed a pretty high threshold for who do we let in the marketplace.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you have a history of accidents, if you have a history of risk, you're probably not likely to be eligible to sign up for an account on Turo.
Well, Andre, certainly a really interesting service. I think the market needs it, right? Cars are underutilized, and looking forward to see what happens here in Canada. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Andre Haddad, the CEO of Turo.